So as an industry, what are we doing today? Well, we're subscribing to an arms race, and we're saying it's acceptable to fight this by playing a carnival game, which is whack-a-mole. And I think it's something that we have seen covered in the trades for 2 years. So this notion that, on a seemingly random basis, there are all of these domains that we are constantly trying to block out and protect ourselves from. Well, we're playing a game with bad guys that have millions of dollars of investment because they're defrauding our ecosystem to a significant degree. And we're not winning this game. If there's any notion that the volume of these sites is declining, that's not in any way what we're seeing. This chart behind me is from the past 3 months of the last quarter. And this is suspicious net new activity on a domain basis that we've found on our through our platform over the past quarter. The volume of net new domains, so that black noise slide behind me, is increasing dramatically. So this game of whack-a-mole is getting harder every day. And it's really no surprise why. Today, the only punishment that we levy if somebody tries to defraud our ecosystem is to blacklist a domain. So we'll take one name off that chart and we'll stop paying them. By that point, they've probably made thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. They go out, they spend $8, they buy a new domain, and they're back in business, and that's what they're doing. What we think is a lot more interesting is looking beyond the noise and seeing how many organized entities are actually hiding in plain sight. So whenever we find any fraudulent domain or any fraudulent site, that is not interesting at all. Like for us, putting one site on a blacklist is of very, very little value. We study it. We try to learn everything we can about the way it's hosted, the way it was created, what went into the creation and curation of that environment so that we can link fraud sites together. We call them clusters. And so if we find the example here, InsideCamping.com, that's not good enough. We also want to know that it's connected to Inside Total Health and Inside Beach Sports and about 200 other inside random sites, all filled with bots, all on the exchange, all available to take your money. And to us, right now, if our line of defense against this is blocking one domain at a time, it's too slow. We have to transcend the domain and go beyond that so that we know, with each of these clusters, who's the organization that we're paying the money to? What's their name? What's the name on the check that we're sending? That's how we can very easily identify these clusters, and we really need to start to demand that moving forward to tighten up our supply chain. So now I want to talk about the other side of the fight against the domain, which is the whitelists. So again, to my point earlier, many people feel that whitelists are the more extreme approach when it comes to safeguarding your buy, and they're very hard to get around. Well, I want to show two examples of how the other side of the wall is attacking our whitelists. So the first one I'm going to call the tale of two YouTubes. Don't mean to pick on YouTube. It could be any website on the internet. This is just an example. But the example that I'm citing here are toolbars. So this is a scenario where software has been installed on a user's computer, which is injecting ads atop websites, taking those ads, sending them out for bid, and masquerading as the identity of the website that they're on. So I've got two examples of two transactions with YouTube. Let's say one of them is Google selling YouTube through AdX. And let's say the other example is a toolbar injecting an ad atop a website, in this case YouTube. So for starters, both are going to pass your whitelist because both are YouTube.com. Our next line of defense is verification. So as a buyer, if you bought this impression on YouTube, you want to know if you got what you paid for. Well, the sophistication of the toolbars is getting so good, they are literally superimposing your ad tag atop the website. So they can fool verification. And I know that there's an arms race there too, and verification is getting better. But the fact remains, your verification can be fooled into thinking you authentically bought this impression on YouTube. So how do we fix this? How do we see the problem? Well, right now I put a big cloud around the solution, which is, who did we pay? Where did the money go? If we bought YouTube, we should have sent our money to Google. If we didn't, who are we paying? Right now, this isn't obvious. We trade based on domains. We know we bought youtube.com. We don't know who we paid. And that's a problem, because it's too easy for people to masquerade as identities other than their own, and we unknowingly buy it. And the same is true for spoofing. So domain spoofing is very easy to do, too easy to do. And from a supply chain perspective, we just implicitly trust the URLs that our ad tags see. So how does this work? Well, for starters, when it comes to domain spoofing, the biggest culprit is generally not your bot fraud, criminal hacker who has zombie computers that you can potentially detect with your anti-fraud vendor. Instead, it's mostly pirate sites or torrent sites, sites that have real users, real audience, real cookies, real IPs, real browsers, human beings viewing ads. So these sites have great, vast audiences of users going to them to try to get content without paying. And they've recognized a few things. The first thing they've recognized is that as an industry, we have done a very good job of blocking them all out. We know all their domains. They're blacklisted. We're not intentionally buying ads on piracy. But they also know that we trade based on domains, and we trust domains. We trust them implicitly. And they also know how ad tags work, and ad exchanges work, and technology works. And so if they're signed up to any network or exchange under their identity or not, they're given a tag. And that tag has a little piece of code in it that I've got up on screen, the key criteria there being location href. This is what tells the tag the URL of the site the ad is on. And they recognize they can delete that with a few characters, put a static URL. In this case, I'm picking on Facebook, but again, it could be any site. You can literally type this in. And now they can masquerade their traffic as somebody else. And now they're beating whitelists. This is too easy to do. And in this particular case, our verification will help, will tell us that we've bought something that we don't want to be on. But that's reactive. We know after the fact. We need to know this proactively. We need to know proactively who we're working with in order to stamp this out.